Okay, hello everybody. Let's talk about sustainable sourcing. So when we look at sustainable sourcing, are we respecting human rights and trying to reduce um, poverty globally by creating profitable trading? Are we working within the finite limits of the planet's resources, and are we moving towards a low carbon economy? So really, sustainable is the model that we're doing able to be perpetuated for the good of all. Um, you know, if you hit on one of those, two of those, you really need to try to hit on all three. You want to take care of the environment, you want to try to take care of your worker, and really to make sure that what you're doing is a model that cannot be attacked, it cannot be weakened, the foundation cannot be undermined. And part of this is truly a workforce that is paid well is going to stick around. A workforce that is paid well is going to make a product that is high quality, that is dependable. When you start um, devaluing human rights, then all of a sudden your workforce is not sustainable, and your supply chain can really be at risk to faulting because of if you run out of people to make your product, you run out of product. The same thing with their planet's resources. You know, if you are making something out of rare earth, the neodymiums, the molybdenums, the things that we make batteries, the thing that we make magnets out of. There's a finite resource of those. And on top of that, most of those resources come from conflict regions in Africa. So if you're not familiar with conflict minerals, there's U.S. legislation around it. Um, and and what this does is it's saying that we want to make sure that the resources that we're using are not causing impoverishment. They're not empowering warlords, and that's what's going on with conflict minerals, and primarily in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, warlords will use the conflict minerals, the three T's, which is tin, tantalum, and tungsten, and gold. Uh, 3TGs is what it's called, and they'll often use those to they'll control the regions where they're mined, and then they'll use child labor, and it's enslaved child labor. They feed them just enough, they hold them at gunpoint while they do it, and they use child labor. They can get into smaller mines, and it's forced labor. It's ecologically, environmentally unfriendly mining practices, and then any of the money that they make from selling it, then they turn around and use that to fund the purchase of weapons of war and to fund their guerrilla activities. Um, and it really just it's not a ideal situation. So when you look at sustainable sourcing, it's saying, are our activities sustainable? Buying your materials from a warlord that utilizes enslaved child labor, that's not a sustainable activity. Now, are there regions where you can get the same rare earth elements, the 3TGs? Yes, you can get those in different parts of South America. You can get them in different parts of China. They're available throughout the world. They're more expensive in those avenues, but it's paying a slightly higher price for a more sustainable and more ethically sound supply chain. So another part of the sustainable sourcing is green purchasing. So this is a proactive practice that is aimed towards ensuring that purchase products and materials, they're environmentally friendly, that there's environmental objectives such as waste reduction, consideration for the types of hazardous materials, minimizing your hazardous materials, containing them when you do, and proper disposition of them when you have to use them. Are we eliminating hazmat materials? Are we trying to reduce waste? Are we encouraging recycling, remanufacturing, and reuse? And really just trying to decrease our carbon footprint, decrease the amount of waste we create, and decrease any negative impact on the earth. So um, not only is this sound financial principles, it's actually proven that it can improve your brand equity and make you more profitable by practicing in these activities. As part of green sourcing, there are the three P's that the text outlines, and that's people, planet, and profit. So by having your people engaged, having your people care about the planet, you're bringing an overall value to the world, you're bringing an overall value to the marketplace. And by doing such, you're elevating your brand out of a commodity status into a category status, and it's really helping to improve your profit. A good example of that, you look at someone like Tom's Shoes. Tom's Shoes, every shoe they make is an environmentally sound product. They reuse, recycle, and remanufacture. And then on top of that, a certain amount of profit goes back to charity. For every pair of shoes you buy, they give a pair of shoes to a child in an impoverished region. So Tom's Shoes, I don't think they're as prevalent as they were maybe 10 years ago when I was doing my MBA, but they're definitely a great example of ethical and sustainable sourcing and total business practices. So when you look at this sustainable sourcing, this green procurement, it really can grow your revenue. And you think, well, how can spending more grow my revenue? And it's because you're able to tell a story. You know, a Starbucks cup of coffee is not much different than a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, but there's a story behind Starbucks. There's an experience behind Starbucks, and then there's also an experience behind products that are sourced sustainably and manufactured sustainably. In the long term, you can reduce your cost. You can also hedge against future fines and future litigation and future civil settlements. It allows you to manage risk better because you have more control over the materials you're using, and you're actually able to build more tangible assets internally and externally. And just overall, if you can get to a sustainable as possible model, the benefits well outweigh the cost. So, we talk about how this can improve your brand equity, how this can move you from a commodity to a category. So, most consumers do expect that companies are sustainable. They're expecting that companies have as minimum impact on the earth as possible. They're expecting that companies minimize the energy they use, the water they use, and the waste they produce. Companies must use their spend and influence to develop ethical and sustainable sourcing practices. That companies, Western companies, must use that might they have, the influence of the dollars that they are spending. Um, and they must use this to improve the world, to improve working conditions, to improve environmental policy. There's many alliances and consortiums that have been and can be formed to further ethical and green and sustainable activities. There's like I went back to a lot of the fair trade organizations. There's a lot of these trade organizations that go a long way to improve the ethical nature, the sustainable nature of our supply chains and of manufacturing, not just in the low cost country regions. I know we talk about that a lot, but also here in the Western regions. Um, so really that's what I have to say on as far as ethical and sustainable supply chain. It's a topic I do enjoy talking about. So if you ever want to have a one-off conversation, if you go onto your MBA and work on your capstone and you're interested in doing this, I'm more than happy to go on the record for an interview. Anything you want to talk about this, please feel free. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this topic. I hope you enjoyed that I broke it up into 4 10-minute type lectures this week instead of the longer ones from last week. So have a great week, everybody.